9, 10. Open fire! Bam, 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 bam. 40 shots ring out. Speak to them. So, well, this is what's funny. So, the father said, of course, the British, after thinking, crowd like us as they want. So he said, man, aim at the crowd. So fellas take bullets ready to fly anytime. He said, man, he said, from where it was by down on the wall, from the telephone lines was, to where the point 14 Nazi standards, right about 100 yards. He said, Hayesby Crawford never run 100 yards. So Hayesby couldn't run that far. He said, run. His farm, my grandfather was in the gallery up there. Now from there to the wall was a little more, right? Tell me when you think that should hurry. A little more. I know this kind of 3D style. He said he showed every track record was broken. Was broken. He said he run out of breath from there to reach up and he father in the gallery looking down. But he knew something going on. He said, Pa, in the shoulders, just shoot a hand out there. He said, you know, telling me that about 3 minutes ago, 10 fellas were he said that a friend of him, you know, he do shop cook, he do shop. A friend, the next day, the friend telling him, he sleeping and he kept like men moving up the road. So he run outside and you see about 100 fellas moving up. So my grandfather said, they were running. He said they were running. They were sprinting. He said he's sure they break all kinds of records. So
thank you.
That's it.
That goes to show the level of violence that the British is prepared to go to defend their interests and their capital.
Yep,
of course. Because the fact that they had Labrador Charles who was shot on sight. And I went to the National Archives and I saw the undercover police reports for the spies who were working at Butler's meetings in the 1930s.
yes.
So it was clear what were their intentions.
Wow.
Furthermore, and I have slight disagreement, at the time Adolf Hitler was not an enemy of the West. Because in 1938, he was Man of the Year in Time magazine. So I think we need to look at what he's relating and what the events at Butler and draw parallel and make the connections between that time and what is happening right now. Of course. Including the closure of Petrotrin and the destabilization going on in Venezuela. By the same people who were responsible back in the 1930s, United States and Britain.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, thank you for explaining that. I can correct it, but Hitler was still a threat.
Hitler was the darling of the British and the Americans, some of whom funded him in the 1920s and 30s. People forget that among his financiers was Ford Motor Company.
That's right. Well, the Americans who didn't want to go back to the like. So they were doing their usual trade and business with the but they weren't worried about nothing. But the British had it on their mind that they
Only because he was threatening their economic interests. They didn't care about the morality.
Might I add something, Mr. Lucky?
of course, Mr. Jacob.
I think that would have tied in.
Stand up and just speak to the audience.
I think that would have tied in with the with where the Americans did actually took over Sharamas at that point of time. Where it would have had a submarine base, they would have built the towers in Labrador and to protect all the different resources, and they had this is still standing at present in Labrador.
225 military bases in Trinidad. No other country outside the United States had as many military bases and gun emplacements other than Trinidad because it was part of the southernmost ring of defenses from the Panama Canal down to this point in time.
I think even during that war, when that war had actually started, Butler was actually jailed for refusing to fight that.
He was jailed because he was considered a threat to the war effort, and that's the same reason why they also, and Mr. Lafleur would get me out on that, the Moyne Commission was suppressed because it indicted the colonial government, but it was suppressed until after the war.
So, thanks for that, gentlemen.
But we still under the British government.
Yeah.
So that was still under the British, so they had to protect us.
British and American.
Right.
British
So
and
therefore, we had to be protected by them.
Well, misdirectedly so. Very strong religious and I dare say messianic streak. He believed that God had appointed him to lead the people out of the wilderness of oppression, and he often used religious metaphors in his speeches. Here is an example of Butler's style. Quote, "After years and years of weeping and groanings, untold miseries and complaints, prayers and petitions, the toiling masses of this colony prayed to the God of justice and fair play, freedom and liberty, the God of their ancient and incomparably glorious African forefathers, to send them a leader. He came in the name of the spiritual lion of the tribe of Judah, the great King Jesus, in a new political organization known as the British Empire Workers and Citizens Home Rule Party of Trinidad, where he took evidence of the sufferings of his people. Let us hope that God in his mercy will not desert his suffering black children." End of quote. Word for word from Butler. Butler told his listeners that unemployment and low wages were the work of the evil white men who control the colony. Above all, the oil magnates. He only settled on strike action after all, I'll repeat that, he only settled on strike action as a last resort after all the alternatives had failed, such as appeals to the governor, Murchison Fletcher was his name. Butler begged him on his knees. The big man went down on his knees to intervene with the oil companies and, by extension, the employers. Only when Butler became convinced that British fair play was not extended to loyal citizens of the empire did he yield to the demands for the oil workers' strike. Even then, the plan was for a peaceful sit-down strike to paralyze the oil fields. It was the blunders and insensitivity of the police and employers which transformed a peaceful strike into a violent outburst in which 14 people were killed and 59 people were injured. Ready for another song?
Ready for, what are the nicest thing about Butler preaching?
Please, David Citron.
Butler finished preaching in Faizabad one day. Sent round he had to collect a little offering when he done pray. Hat went around the crowd and come back to he. When he look inside, not even one black penny. He go to the crowd and he tell them flat, "Thank you, honest people, for returning my heart."
Thank you, David. Thank you. Let me say, one day you're reading your paper, headlines say, "Oh, they charge Butler for guerrilla." I know plenty people will want to shout, but brother man, what is there to shout about? I'm living in a yes man society. where no man becomes the enemy. And if you decide to hold tight to the law, the system has so much ways of getting you to go. Nothing has changed in the life of a man who won't change. Once they don't want me to talk for you and wouldn't do the things that they want you to do, your life is sniffed whether night or day, because any number can play. Nothing has changed in the life of a man who won't change. The system has a vicious way of operating. It's like a vulture when it's about to attack its victim. Once you say they're wrong and feeling you're right, they can attack you like a thief in the night. One day you're a hero, the next day a traitor. One day you're wealthy, the next day a pauper. And if you play it smart or too intelligent, you can die mysteriously in a freak accident. Nothing has changed in the life of a man who wants to change. There are times the system commits wrong in your eyes. Let us take the brutal murder of Sister Jean Myers, a woman whose first love was that of her country. Her second love, I know, was honesty. Jean went and exposed that gas station racket. Behavior like that, the system won't have it. Before they praised Jean for the work she had done, the system attacked her and brought her worse than any beggar in town. Nothing has changed in the life of a man who wants change. For all I know of the system and its working, a better life for my people, I must keep fighting. Butler! I cannot be destroyed, and I'll tell you why. Tell me now, how many times can one man die? And die on the shores of Africa and India. And die 1937 striking with URIAH. They should be in the square demonstrating with dagger. So charging me now for guerrilla is only fire. Nothing has changed in the life of a man who wants change. Nothing has changed in the life of a man who wants change. A classic by Calypsonian. The black man.
attend, but sadly his health is still not letting him do what he wants to do. Butler was tried and convicted for sedition, and he was sentenced to 2 years imprisonment. He was released early 1939, but he was interned again on the outbreak of the Second World War. He was released in 1940. He then tried to regain leadership of the working class movement, and especially of the Oilfield Workers' Trade Union, which was formed in 1937 by Adrian Kohler Rienzi. He thought that the OWTU leadership was denying him the power and glory which was rightly his. And in 1941, he engineered a strike to discredit the union. As a result of all this, Butler was again detained 1941 to 1945 by the same colonial government which felt that Butler was endangering the British war effort by jeopardizing vital supplies of oil. Butler's long years in jail added to his popularity. He became a martyr to the workers' cause. His absence, however, from the scene during the crucial years after 1937 meant that leadership was inevitably Sergeant Cornelius. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll stop there. Sergeant Cornelius, sir, the cousin, Andrew, you'd like to know, of Alvin Cornelius.
Okay.
Yes. Sergeant Cornelius is a sergeant and a colleague in the San Fernando Magistrates Court.
My student.
Your student?
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm going to get to where it was a critical question, but let me finish this section. During the Oilfield riots, where was Butler? That baffled the authorities, Britain and the United States with the world, but Butler was not to be found. I'll get to that because I want to deal with that separately. Let me finish this section. He was released at the end of the war in 1945. He was then offered a responsible position with the OWTU, the Oilfield Workers' Trade Union, of course. But he was only interested in its leadership. He called a general strike again in 1946, and his followers stormed the Red House. Butler sadly was expelled from the OWTU. But on Wednesday, in Faizabad, you're going to get him.
Yeah.
They kicked the man out, but you're going to get him. Butler was expelled for what was regarded as Butler anti-union activities. Butler. He formed a loose organization known as the Butler Party, which won 3 seats in the 1946 elections, the first to be held in universal suffrage. Unfortunately, he was deported, not deported, Venezuela, not my mind. He was defeated in Port of Spain by whom? Take a guess. Good guess, but not. Can't you take a guess? No, sir. Albert Gomes. Thank you. It is arguable that it was unwise of Butler to have left the oil belt, which was his stronghold, to go to the city. After 1946, very important, he tried to forge an Afro-Indian front. In the 1950 elections, his party won 6 seats, 4 of them held by Indos. 1950. Although the Butler Party was the single group in the Legislative Council, by a piece of constitutional engineering, he was denied a single seat in the Executive Council, later to be the cabinet. The British official and the moderate politicians like Mr. Albert Gomes wished to deny Butler the legitimacy which the office would have given him. He was felt to be too uneducated. Butler, who went to a prestigious school in Grenada, he too uneducated, too lacking in administrative skills to assume office. Butlerism sadly became a spent force. The alliance between him and the Indos fell apart. He took up residence in Britain for much of the period spanning 1950-1956. His movement was decisively defeated in the 1956 election. An up-and-coming hotshot took over the country. His name? Dr. the Right Honorable Eric Eustace Williams. A new Messiah had emerged on the political front, and Butler's old-fashioned oratory was eclipsed by the dark. On Wednesday, as trade unionists lay wreaths on the grave of Butler in the Junction, remember the words of President General of the Bankers and General Workers Trade Union, Princeton Cabrera, who accused some of his colleagues of losing sight of Butler's political vision in June. In June 20th, 1930, Mr. Cabrera is now an industrial court judge. I don't know if you're all aware. What is the Butler vision? It is one where the workers would eventually hold the reins of power. But there are some trade unions who don't even see that as a political issue. They are only satisfied with handling wage disputes and grievances of the workers, and they do not speak about advancing the social makeup of society. When asked whether he believed that getting into the political fray would jeopardize their independence, it is my humble opinion that unions are separate from politics. President General of the WTU, Mr. AInsley, will agree with me that Butler was responsible for all the gains workers enjoy today. We agree on that? The conditions today are similar to those which the Butlerite movement fought against in the 30s and 40s. But theirs was the fight against colonialism. And remember that flyer, quoted Butler. I love that quote. Quote, I'm going to get this voice. I will not put away my sword until the last vestige of colonialism in this country is eradicated. He sent shivers up their spines, that man. And Nelson Mandela said it. The day you show you have power, that's when they could kill you. They put Mandela in jail for how long? How long Mandela was in jail for? 6 years. Thank you. The day you show Maxi, your history. No, Butler's disappearance.
I was like, what hide that way? Could hide.
I'm saying it again. I warned earlier, I'm saying it again. I'm not going to get my notes here. When Charlie King got killed, Butler went into hiding. Because, as Andrew said, the word was out, shoot to kill. Attila the Hun, who's ever heard of him? Calypsonian. This is the song. The police, they search everywhere. Sergeants and majors, they tore up their hair. Sticking the magic in the country and down. But the elusive Butler, he couldn't be found. You all will like this second line. Some say he had gone to America. Some say they saw him in Venezuela. But I know despite all the people had to say, Butler was right here in our midst. He didn't go away. The police got a wire one day, I understand. The hustle about enforced, but they didn't catch the man. CID declared this is a mystery. Butler getting away was worse for me than if he used hoodoo. I asked Butler, not me, Attila. I asked Butler what was the mystery. He said, Attila, I was right in the city. Arrested by the police is what I really feared, so I just clipped my mustache and I shaved off my beard. Where was Butler? The question of the day. They searched and they searched, but he wasn't found nowhere. What people do not know about the mystery, he hid in a car trunk Thanks to Auntie Maggie. Auntie Maggie, Andrew and Angela, myself, was our aunt, our father's sister. And she lived at the time in Faisabad. Now, the all who know Faisabad, go with me. The junction, Butler statue. Go right. About quarter mile, there used to be a cinema called Universal, owned by the Cinax. Next to the cinema was a big sprawling brown house, wraparound gallery. That's where Auntie Maggie lived. And Auntie Maggie hit Butler in the car trunk of her car. And she gave Butler one of her dresses. Butler cross-dressed in them days. And a hat. You know, the hats in those days were big elaborate things.
I just say money, collect the money.
That's the same money got the money from.
Try to get money, don't you?
And that's where Butler was. Margaret, Lucky, and she was, bless her soul, Samaru. Hit Butler. And when Butler was in Egypt during the war, he was in Egypt. Rumor has it that he learned the mystic arts. Because when he was leaving Faisabad to come to another hideout, he was in a car in the back. Butler driving in the front, Butler in the back riding up. They're on the creek, coming towards after that. Take it for what it is. Huh? I wasn't there. Okay, I'll say, this is what I did. He was on the creek and leaning over the car. Then their seatbelts weren't in effect. No, Sergeant Cornell, they wouldn't arrest them in their place. Butler leaning over the car. Watch for police. And the driver said, suddenly, Butler disappeared. And within a minute or two, Butler was back in the car. Powerful man, Butler.
If I didn't know that when I come home later.
well, you and Andrew can do it now. Butler knew our father very well. I remember in the old days, May the 1st was a May Day celebration. And those names I put on the board are significant. Walter Anaman Thudo, may he rest in peace. George Weeks, another volatile man. Sergeant Crawford, nice to see you, sir. Another member of our look, ladies and gentlemen, one of our guests is showing the book by George Weeks. Powerful human being. Sergeant Crawford, nice to see you. Another member of our constabulary, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. Salmon John, close family friend. Tony Allenby. He lived just at the end of these buildings here. 39 Coffee Street. Ronald Sampath, our cousin. Bastio Pandey, Union man. Kelvin Lucky, our father's brother. He knew Butler very, very well. He and Butler ran politically. Percy Passad, he used to live just Netton Street somewhere down there. There's a farm? Lionel Sukera, Silver Fox. Well, we have a Silver Fox now, but Lionel Sukera, Suki. Those are just a handful of the personalities who were in Butler's camp. So, please stand up and say what you please.
The two Sedanans, they went on the Butler party too.
Please tell us.
And Mitra.
Both of them were on the Butler party.
Ashford and Mitra.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So you miss out.
Sorry, will you ever, Father, will you ever forgive me?
You know if Mahal is
Please.
a big around, Mahal?
Oh, yeah. He had a 10-ton truck he used to do. Yeah. Yes, sir.
I think in all fairness, you also need to acknowledge the role of the women.
Yes.
Yes.
You had Emma Francois, who inspired Butler to do the hunger marches you spoke about earlier.
Is that the woman who used to put people?
And then you have the women who many of whom you will never know the names of.
Yes.
And Butler was in hiding there, the monsoon hid him.
Yes.
One. And two, were basically feeding misinformation to the elites and taking information from them and feeding them to the OWTU.
Right.
And so on, because they were the domestic workers.
Yes.
And so on.
Thanks for that.
And despite the fact that they were very poor, and I think this is a very important lesson to learn in this time where everything is about money and so on. These were very poor people living in the slums in and around La Brea and so on.
I hear you.
And there was a very sizable reward out for Butler, and they never betrayed.
Thank you. Thanks for that, sir. Thanks for that.
If I may say, what reminds me when you said they never betrayed him. I'd also like to mention the name of Mr. Hamilton Mike. Now, you'll see why I said it. He was of East Indian descent. He was Hamilton, there's another Hamilton Mike that you know. But he was, in those days, they said head teacher, now they say principal. He was the head teacher of the Faizabad Presbyterian School. And he had Butler for a few days too in the storeroom of the school. And a very small storeroom. And Butler stayed there for a few days, just as like he stayed in my trunk. What resilience that man had to stay in a little tiny storeroom for a few days. Yeah. And they were brave. And the point here I'm getting at, they were so brave that the races were never as united as they were the races. The race didn't matter who you were, where you were. Everybody hit Butler. As the gentleman said, rewards were offered, but people were already catching tail. And nobody went for the reward. Nobody shows how people were, how loyal. But cynically, some people would joke and say, people didn't dare go for the reward because they died of naturally. So even if they wanted to, they wouldn't do it.
But there was a spirit of solidarity because you had the Indian sugar workers, and one of the organizers was a woman named Fuldacy, and they went on strike too. The teachers went on strike. I think the dock workers as well too began, you could say, industrial action as far back as 1919. And they also came out in solidarity. So I think it's something that we need to know, especially now when we watch the mockery that exists for trade unionism right now.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Come on. I remember May the 1st used to have May Day parades. Union men would wear their mob shirts. And I remember one day, I was a little boy, toddler. We're marching down Coffee Street. Butler in the forefront. Butler saw our father in the gallery. Butler left the parade and went upstairs in our house, greeted my father in the gallery. They knew each other intimately, and I remember this so closely. Butler lifted me. And when he was speaking to me, he spit on me, bonus.
That was a blessing.
And I consider that a blessing. How are you, little boy? Butler beg me, man.
I thought you paid him.
No, I didn't get it. I didn't get it. Time is crawling up on us, ladies and gentlemen.
If I may quickly say, I don't know if I should leave it. Butler was not only very highly intelligent. I had the privilege of meeting him as a little boy when my uncle Kelvin Rossi went up in the election. And all of them lost their deposits. I think Butler might have lost his deposit too. But I met Butler, but I was too small to appreciate, of course, the man's intelligence. I was about 9 years old. But Butler was not only highly intelligent, he had a great wit and a great sense of humor. And if I may well, this is an old one, everybody might have heard it. The one showing his wit with Muriel Donovan. You all know that one. Shall I give it again? Or? Yes. When he was going up with contesting, this is the point 426. And the crowd, of course, I recall, that was 56. BNM was really on the roll. And the crowd were chanting, heckling him, saying, "We want Ghana, we want Ghana, we want Ghana." But let's say, but what's the problem? What is going on so far? I want Ghana too. and one more example of that is his wit was Butler, his sense of humor, he had a great sense of humor in that you all might have heard this one too, because this joke is over and all of us here. But anyway, his sense of humor was so good that he would heckle himself, and they always say a great personality could take jokes as much as he could give. And Butler, on the platform once, he gave this joke. He said, parents wanted that only child, they wanted to know what the boy would become when he gets big. So they put him in a room with a butler around on the table, a bag of money, and a Bible. So they outside the room and they feed it to see which one. They say, well, if we take the rum, might become a little drunk. Right? If we take the money, might become a rich businessman and financier or some big accountant. And if we take the Bible, he might become a priest or a preacher also. So let's see which one he'll take. So they looking, and the boy walk out with the bottle of rum under the hand, bag of money in the other hand, and the Bible under the other hand, and he walk out with all of them. So the mother say, "Oh my God, he's going to become a politician."
Good one,
I wrote on the board the 3 B's who influenced me as an advocate, and I hope as a man. Butler, Black Stalin, and the American actor Burt Lancaster. And Butler had a grudge against the exploiters, management. And I have what he said about that here, and I will say it the way one of my influences would have said. As long as I've got a foot, who said? As long as I've got a foot, I'll kick the exploiter. And as long as I've got a fist, I'll punch him. And as long as I've got a tooth, I'll bite him. And when I'm old, I'm grey, I'm toothless and bootless, I'll gum it till I go to heaven and the exploiter goes to hell. That's how Burt Lancaster was. People who witnessed Butler said this. As he rose to speak, he aroused so much enthusiasm both as a preacher and a courtier, impassioned in his gesticulation. His voice persuasive, his smile infectious and fascinating, his reasoning clear and consequential. He held his listeners fast for all the time he spoke. And when people made fun of Butler, this is important. Butler was no fool. He said, quote, "I love to jest. Accept me my jesting. And if you wish, you can also laugh." End of quote. Where did he get that from? Karl Marx's introduction to his critique of the Hegelian philosophy of right, 1844, which came from the Firma Quartella of Pope Boniface VII, dated 1296. Butler was not an intelligent man? Butler was not an intelligent man? I saw a movie recently called India's Most Wanted. Absolutely spellbinding. The point, the reason I bring that up is that the actor Arjun Kapoor, who plays the hero Prabhat, it's a true story about the Osama bin Laden of India in 2008. And 5 ordinary men got this Osama bin Laden. Not the madman with the Twin Towers. They call him India's Osama. He said, which I'd like to apply to Butler, when everybody is Batman, Superman, Iron Man, Spider-Man, Garbage Man, they asked this actor what he thought about the character he played, and here's what he said. Not every hero wears a cape.
True.
That is true. Somebody said that.
This man is Trinidad and Tobago's first national hero. That is marriage. Former Commissioner of Police, Mr. James Philbert, gave me this very moving but simple limerick. We will never let the old man fall, cause we love him the best of all. We never went to college, but Butler gave us knowledge. We will never let the old man fall. James Philbert shared that with me. 3 verses of a poem I wrote. A couple of things have occurred to me of matters that happened so recently. I put them together as an offer of what would have touched Uriah Butler. Consider Petrotrin closing recently. Government say unprofitable refinery. But the truth of all makes them liars. Petrotrin had 70 bidders. Butler would have looked around at things in time and gasped with horror at all of this crime. That's taking part in this country, never failing, happening daily. When will this nightmare stop in its tracks? When will people refrain from all these attacks? It's beyond debate, I say. Trinbago's fate is balancing. Please bring back the hanging.
Yes.
Final verse. There is the pitch lake on the way to Guapo. Guapo is where Butler lived, you know. If Butler could see today's condition, he will pray and pray for contrition. The pitch lake is a cow that has plenty milk, yet those in charge don't give an ilk. Imagine how it used to be. Fields of cane gave us sugar. Now we had to buy sugar from Guyana. The nation's working class has been put on notice that the labor movement is not dead. And the point will hopefully be driven home at the mass rally they plan on Wednesday. It used to be Butler Day amongst labor. During the May Day parade, OWTU leader Mr. AInsley opined that, quote, had we not come out in the rain and sun, today and tomorrow we would have gotten blows from the powers that be. Petrotrin was a crime against humanity. I don't care what anybody says in disagreement. They should never have done that to Petrotrin. It was a crime against community because no one has a clear idea of how these workers and their families live. Our forefathers worked without health and safety laws, and many died in the field working day and night to make sure the country benefited. The labor movement is the only voice to speak out against the injustice perpetrated upon the people. The powers that be are satisfying their own vain interests. That is me talk. If only don't agree, only can read.
Remember Charlie King, eh?
Remember Charlie King. Now, something all you didn't know. And from the first 4 bars, you don't know where I'm coming from. Ba-ba-ba-dee-be, ba-ba-da-bo. Ba-da-ba-dee-be, ba-ba-da-bo. Ba-da-ba-dee-be, ba-ba-da-bo. Well, there's something old you didn't know. But love, extended. That's true. Butler said, how could I reach when them hecklers giving me talk in the speech? I had to know how to extempore, except I never say. So let us keep Butler's image alive. in time. So let us keep Butler's image alive by embarking for a time on extempo and keep his memory alive. Bees live in a hive. What kind of rhyme? So I'll ask my colleague to go among you folks to show that only a good extempo to please the old man. Sans humanity. So now I'm calling down no blow. Bullet trumpet. Now I will pick on a few of you because you know what to do. And I first will make him man. Dave's future.
I step already.
Okay. There you go.
Oh God, man. I'm a star, but I ain't getting paid to live, you know.
Where you at? Pass the hat, sir.
Well, AInsley, boy, it's we who lucky for sending out this special invitation to we. You do the thing right and you do it great. And allow all of us to participate. But I want to tell you something, when you wind up and done, I'm not going home till you invite me to the next one.
Sans humanity.
A very good start. Dave, you take part. And I would like to thank you from my heart because I eat shatter and I don't want to. So moving down among the crowd, we're going to have some fun. And I want all you to know is man likes plenty. I'm calling on plenty.
Sans humanity.
Thank you, Mr. Lucky, for inviting me for this thing about Butler. You see, he's a very good star. He make me more better to get jobs and know your rights of the country and the labor force. Thank you very much, Mr. Lucky, for informing me. Thank you, man.
All right.
Sans humanity.
Well, earlier I had met with one look, a thiefy man book. You know who I talking about. And we ready with him all. Well, you get up already, I ain't followed this yet. I ain't followed yet. So folks, with no further ado, here is my brother Andrew to mesmerize with his wit. I hope he come and sing.
Buzzy boy, by the way, I'm going to sing this because coming in the car, I'll make it up. But the thing is, AInsley wouldn't like it because you will realize, well, from my singing, which I think is good enough, to make you realize which Sparrow tune I took this from, right? AInsley wouldn't like that because I still insist that Sparrow is still the greatest calypso entertainer.
Hold on, don't clap.
You have to beg them not to clap. They will wait to clap.
Whatever you about your plus?
Anyway,
You ready?
but I sing into the Sparrow tune now.
Do what you have to do.
Buzzy oi, Buzzy oi, you were the bravest man and the most heroic in the Caribbean. You've done it. You won it. The greatest battle against the Brit.
All right.
And that's not it. And
Well, he hiding behind everybody. Think I won't see him. But I threatened him yesterday. I say, Sergeant, you were getting away. He still come, I am glad. Because we know the hero of Trinidad. So without further ado, I had my meal. Sergeant called me.
Understand?
Mr. Lucky, I warning you. You shouldn't have called me for true. I come here today. It was just to listen and to play. But seeing that you called me now this evening, I have to find something to sing. So, thank you for inviting me. I'm going to sing a few verses on him.
All right.
Mr. Lucky, thank you for your contribution about the great man they called URIAH BUZ BUTLER. You give us the information that if we take it, we could become one. So I hope that this helps you. Sandy Vanity.
Thank you. Well, Lucky leading the chorus as if make a fuss. You know who I talking about without a. But before I call on him, I'm trying to find something that rhymes. So the only thing, I look in my pocket and I find a bob for Mr. Jacob.
Well, I just want to thank Mr. Lucky for inviting us for free. I want to thank Mr. Lucky. I don't want to work with any money. I was glad to hear about Butler, about what he had to offer. So next time when I go find Auntie Maggie, I will hide the chunk for free.
Well, he's sitting down there and he asleep. He take up, but I'll wake him and I'll call him to begin. I know what he's saying will be a hit. I'm calling on Anthony Suture to greet us with a sweet, sweet melody. Come here, Anthony.
That's humanity.
That's extempo.
But I can't understand why these people are so bad. For I know all of them were running their mouth. They don't know what they're talking about. You know, they shut down the refinery and they shut down the sugar factory.
So to be general, I'm calling on my panel. We need some female voices in line. Who in time? Well, she have an onion. I'm calling on passion. The last time she extempo, she hit me really hard. I'm on guilty bad.
Well, Mr. Lucky, I am not as was Lancaster. I didn't come here to stand up and sing. My name is not Black Salad. I come here because I bought Butler to learn more about TUBAL URIAH. I love history and I love to hear you sing. And I'm going to go, so thank you, my team.
Very good. I invite this man to many lectures. Yeah, sure, but he ain't here yet. And I'm calling on this man. He's an icon of San Fernando. Yeah. All of us know this guy. He never does lie. So please give the mic to Mr. Keith Bush.
This is something I did not expect, but as I got it,
Take your time. Let me go again. This is something.
I never expect when I walk in, I know I had to come here because as you said, you expected me here. So I am here to support you today, and for the rest of the events we might have to say. So look out for me anytime, anywhere for a life.
All right.
If I don't get better, if you call on your dear sister.
I was about to. Yeah. Take me up. It's Dave's future and for the man he pulled for. Not a rhyme. And I know I'll never hear the end if I don't call my sister friend. She will mesmerize us. I hope she don't put us to sleep. So without no further ado, my sister Angela.
AInsley, I'm so proud of you. You are the last of my parents. No, you're not the last. Second to last of my parents' children. Musician, lawyer, lecturer, historian. I am so pleased to hear all what you researched. You will never know how your parents, although they are way up there, they'll be so proud of you, my dearest brother, AInsley.
Sans humanity. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. As the countdown to Labor Day continues, a cursory view of the labor landscape does not paint an encouraging picture. Retrenchment continues unabated in several sectors of the economy, with workers having to pay the ultimate price for economic adjustments. Institutions established to defend the rights of workers, such as the Industrial Court, continue to fend off attacks from the employer class, with calls for adjustments in the legislative framework to give even more power to employers. The promised package of labor reform legislation continues to be only that. Demonization of unions continues to be a favorite pastime of many influential figures in the society. Against this backdrop, unions prepare to engage in Labor Day observances from a divided front, with political allegiances taking precedence over the rights of workers. Ego and power intoxication continue to supersede duty, making union bashing all the more easy. In too many instances, unions neglect their duties as defenders of principles of social justice, equity, and democracy, while capitalist forces amalgamate and merge to maximize profits. Trade unions remain divided, unable and in many instances unwilling to consolidate forces towards the pursuit of a common workers' agenda. It is no secret that the respect that unions once commanded has diminished, especially so in the last 2 decades. As a people, we have forgotten that the unions played a pivotal role in our struggle for independence and the subsequent constitutional rights we all enjoyed, not just as workers, but as citizens of a free and democratic society. We take such rights for granted at our own peril, not realizing that human rights and freedoms, if not jealously guarded and defended, will just as easily be lost. Given the global political landscape, the signs and threats to human rights and democracy are increasing at an alarming rate, and if we are to not sufficiently be vigilant, these hard-fought rights can be eroded in quick time. In the defense of workers' rights, unions must be in the vanguard of democracy and human rights, for these issues are not mutually exclusive. While the temptation to align to political parties and their ideologies can be quite strong, they must never be done to the detriment or negligence of worker rights. Solidarity among common core workers' issues is our only option given the avalanche of attacks on trade unions and their leaders, while individual unions may not be able to challenge the economic might of conglomerates and super corporations. The collective strength of unions have been and continue to be our most feared and potent weapon. Unions must of necessity embark upon a targeted program of worker education, since worker ignorance, selfishness, and individualism provide fertile grounds for exploitation by unscrupulous employers. Labor Day must not be seen and treated as just another holiday for a beach or a riverine, nor should it only be for labor leaders to espouse political rhetoric, which, given our polarized political culture, does more to alienate workers, especially the younger ones. All workers, regardless of class, must meaningfully engage in activities to mark this day, in tribute to the labor struggles of the past, as well as a means of safeguarding the worker rights we seemingly take for granted. Labor education must infiltrate our schools as part of the program of citizenship education. Our young ones ostensibly have neither a minimal sense of history nor an appreciation for the rights and freedoms they enjoy. Social media and the ease with which misinformation is shared represents a fixation point for the average youth, marginalizing issues of democracy and human rights into near oblivion until it is sometimes too late. Such labor education programs must debunk the myths that unions only defend low productivity, unpunctuality, and irregularity. They must emphasize the role of unions in the maintenance and preservation of democracy and democratic principles, which is especially important given the ease with which media houses are swayed by political corporate inducements. Even the courts, in some instances, cannot be relied upon to ensure that social justice prevails. I'll get to that, time permitting. Workers themselves must understand the power they yield and that their participation and involvement in union activities safeguard their own interests. This is the only way in which they can ensure that their voices are heard. They must demand their right to union membership and collective bargaining in every sector of the economy. Denial of such rights must be met with staunch resistance. No company, especially those owned by the state, must be able to boast of preserving a non-union environment. My opinion. And I pen this. I'd like to share it with you. And the reason I am here and you folks have left your homes on a Saturday afternoon is because you want to take care of what I have to say. And I feel strongly about this man. TUBAL Uriah Buz Butler, my hero, the working man and woman's hero, my role model. I told you, as an advocate, I emulate him. And this is what I wrote. It's not very long. It is difficult to encounter role models in this country as people of good character worthy of emulation. You see good character as a collective of the virtues of a sense of right and wrong, of fair play and justice, of empathy and its ancillaries. It is the only essence of true mentorship, not status or circumstance as an end in themselves, unless underpinned by all of the aforementioned. This in itself is rare among us. In politics, leadership is often tainted by the transparent contradiction between the platitudes extolled at the top and what lies beneath. The law seems a travesty of itself, hardly about truth and justice, with its servants from top to bottom under continuous scrutiny for malfeasance of some kind or another. In the noble professions, I frequently wonder at the role of the servants of these professions who exhibit behaviors so antithetical to true fidelity of their sworn undertakings. This is so commonplace among the young, and how the Hippocratic oath of one's calling can be so violated by the love of money. This transports us away from the elite. I speak of the way we rob and kill without compunction, drive without due care and attention, extort at every turn, which betrays that dearth of moral fiber which can make us human. Yet, if we look closely, we can find role models in the unlikeliest place. I speak of the popcorn man.
Yes, yes.
Sergeant Cornell, you remember the popcorn man of about a week ago in San Fernando? Lower High Street.
Yeah.
You remember?
Yeah.
Sergeant Crawford. I speak of the popcorn man on Lower High Street of 2 weeks ago. He was strong enough to admit to his weaknesses in his past. He was willing to redeem himself for the future with honest work. He seemed so heroic against the backdrop of the law, which failed to temper justice with mercy, so well deserved. This mix of sin and redemption I put to you folks is the essence of good character and is worthy of emulation. In a society such as ours, where many prefer to wallow in their wrongdoing with no remorse, no regret, no sense of rehabilitation. Let us reflect upon the young man in Tobago, profiled for his choice of electing to be a dedicated lettuce farmer. Here is a person with no pretensions, or I dare say, vaulting ambitions to become rich. He simply nurses a burning desire to do something that he loves, where the purity of his intention is reflected remarkably in the verdant green of the lettuce beds which surround him. In a society with the tenet of get rich or die trying, who's that? 50 cents. In a society with the tenet of get rich or die trying is a norm adopted by so many of our young people, this Tobago youth's discipline and dedication are a most worthy antidote to the thinking of today's misplaced youth. The support of this man's father in his son, in whom he is very well pleased, should be held up in the air as a prop to the institutions of family, which is so sadly in the decline. Consider how the people of Cyperia dug deep into their humanity, choosing to help the Venezuelan migrants who are and were driven from their homes by dirty politics and just wanting to survive. Finally, how can we overlook the fierce independence of a Supreme Court judge, Justice Abood, who dared in his ruling to let a certain politician, Jack Warner, seemingly alone to himself to know the limits of his authority. This is of particular significance because we are desperate for people with the requisite testicular fortitude, willing to tell politicians as it is, and not good for a mess of pottage, as do many. This, for me, is the singular leading cause of our undevelopment as a society and as a people. That judge's ruling is the seed to make us grow out of our complacent morass, the way Butler shook the powers of the day by their lapels. Like Butler's intention and objective, we must be willing to own up and tell the politicians in their ivory towers as it is. Tell them, as Butler did 74 years ago, with a message that has not changed over the years, not one iota. The message: we are as mad as hell and we are not going to take it anymore. If we muster up the courage, as I seriously doubt we will, then we will stop having to grovel for that mess of pottage, that pie in the sky, as many of us do. Now, in light of the impending increase of our performing parliamentarian, it is worthwhile to know that the Prime Minister of New Zealand, Ms. Jacinda Arden has just turned down a recommended US $12,000 pay rise. She commented that it wasn't acceptable and she has moved to freeze MPs' salaries for a year. That leads me to thinking of the proposed increase in pension for the Prime Minister, for parliamentarians and judges.
Yeah, they need the money.
Yeah, I'm sure. As touted by the Minister of Finance, the Honorable Mr. Colm Imbert. I do not believe that given that they are on the upper end of the salary scale, that they should enjoy any kind of financial largesse. They are already on a high income. One of the things they should try and bridge as a government is the fact that we see these benefits at the top end of the scale without the same increase at the end of the scale where most individuals are. Parliament needs to table that legislation which allows for any financial increases in flour. My opinion.
If we don't pay them well, they don't want to pay.
Thank you.
We don't want to start different.
We fighting the clock, so we are out here. Go ahead. Go on. You already talked for 2.
Who I consider to be the greatest trade union leader ever.
Yes, sir.
And it is good to talk about him, and I appreciate all that he has said. That my main concern about
yes, sir.
these trade union leaders today is what easily. And I, as a mature man, I'm trying to create that environment that develop the potential in people who can become like this. I need your opinion, please. If you could tell me what was the characteristics of this man, or what really made him into that kind of leader that he was. I don't know about 3 seconds already. So that we can prepare in the future to have a Messiah like him, to have a man who cannot be born like him. Thank you very much.
Thank you. One word will answer your question, sir. What's that word? Honesty and humility. Butler was a humble man. You should see where he lived in Guapo. A 2-bedroom home on bricks. Loose bricks is where Butler lived. Now, we have run out of time. And how better to end it? Butler, we had a cinema in La Brea. Butler lived in Guapo. And he was so close to our father, Amos Lapi, may rest in peace, that he used to come to that cinema. And I remember one Easter, the double was Sons of Thunder and Lilies of the Field. Sidney Poitier. He won the Oscar for that role, by the way. And I think it fit him. Two songs. Let us do this one first. What do you know there? It won't take long. Mr. Mamditsin, you're looking a little nervous. I need all your help. This is a contrafactual. It's a big word meaning I borrowed the music from the late Lord Kitchener and I added my lyrics. But I want all you to sing this. I would go.
I'll do the action.
You do the action. I would go. La da da dee, la da dee, la da dee. Uriah Butler is the man. That is from Kitchener's Hazy Crawford.
Hazy Crawford.
Right? Want to know what I was saying there? Who make we scream as a child launch the world? Uriah Butler is the man. Who make we scream as he kept at his goal? Uriah Butler is the man. Right, here we go. Labor Day morning, we will be celebrating him. Right. Let's get moving. I want you to jump like a man. Show that you're glad, so give him the keys to the whole of the land. Uriah Butler is the people man. Here we go again. Paul Robeson's motto applies to Butler. Here I stand. Uriah Butler is the people man. Here we go. Exploitation must come to the last woman and man. Uriah Butler is the people man. I like this one. Butler showed them he didn't give a caca-down. Uriah Butler is the people man. You going good? 1937 he gave them a grand slam. Uriah Butler is the people man. Butler told the Brits and the Yankees, catch me if you can. Uriah Butler is the people man. I saw him once in Soho with a kerchief in his hand. Uriah Butler is the people man. He loved extempo, he spoke like a Baptist Calypsonian. Uriah Butler is the people man. Now wait, what you think he'd do with all them weapons we learn? Uriah Butler is the people man. Look, get me straight, he was not a comedian. Uriah Butler is the people man. Butler blazed a trail for us to follow hand in hand. Uriah Butler is the people man. 3 more. Never ever forget the value of a trade union. Uriah Butler is the people man. No longer must we go to them hat in hand. Uriah Butler is the people man. Watson, you could swim to Japan if he can. Uriah Butler is the people. Uriah Butler is the people. Uriah Butler is the people man. Yeah. Thank you. Now, I know I'm fighting the clock. 2 more things.
Nice.
Wow. Talent galore.
Yeah. There's a display right behind you commemorating tomorrow. And I think us dads, they are a bad break. I mean, when it's Mother's Day, mommy going to Great Wall and she getting roses and she getting gift certificate and perfume. And when it's Father's Day, you getting up your socks. Or boxers, or tie pin, or tie. So let us just pool everything. Tomorrow is Father's Day. This man was a father. His daughter was to attend. She lives in Superior, but she's fairly infirm. She cannot walk very well.
Okay.
So, without getting maudlin, let us give Daddy a break. If you know the words, sing it. Thank you. Repeat. Lilies of the Field, Sidney Poitier. I don't know how many of you have seen. Wonderful film. He won the Oscar for that, Mr. Poitier. And there's a song in it that I think is appropriate for us to end. But we all understand. And the lyrics tough. I wish I could have write it down for all of you. But they only have one board in this library. The lyrics are as follows. Amen. 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 Now, Butler was a Baptist. So we had to get on like Baptist and be clapping. So here we go. Now, before we go, Butler, that is a song in Lilies of the Field. And Butler adapted that in his ministry. Because he thought, as we all did, that this song encapsulates our Lord Jesus Christ's life in simple verses. So we give him Butler a send-off. There we go. On the count of 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. Amen.
I would just like to express to Mr. Lucky a thank you, and to you, the audience, for being here this afternoon, to my staff, Isaiah, Vishamani, for having organized this. Mr. Lucky is our extended family. The amount of lectures he's done with us, whether it's Labor Day, Independence, Emancipation, Carnival, you know, we have him throughout the year, and I think you all will agree he's a very entertaining, educating, and, you know, he brings a wealth of knowledge. Thank you to all those who gave their stories as well. I think it's something new for me, and I'm sure it's something new for most of you also. So, thank you, Mr. Lucky. Thank you all for being here. And by extension, I would like to say that Carnegie has other lectures, other activities. So, for example, we have to decide here it's called Trinidad Iron Horse, but it's all about the last train, which we have on the promenade, is the history of the railway in Trinidad. So I would invite you all to look at it, make your comments. On the first Monday of each month, we have partnered with the Southwest Regional Health Authority, and they are presenting a series of lectures on mental health. Those lectures have started. Last month was depression, this month was anxiety, but continuing until December, every month, the first Monday of each month, from 10 a.m. we have different lectures on mental health, different aspects of mental health. We have partnered with the mental health clinic, so you have the psychiatrists, you have the psychologists who are actually delivering these information to us. So I would invite you all, where you can, please feel free to come to the library, listen to the lectures, look at all the other things that we have planned, because it's not only about the books, but you know, it's about all the different persons who are willing to share their expertise with us and educate us as well. So again, thank you, and thank you all for being here.
Thank you again, everyone. Thank you very much for showing up today, Saturday evening, especially the day before Father's Day. It's a very tough time to show up, but we all know that we need and we have to always watch this man. It's the AInsley. As I said, I will always say, yes sir.
What you probably going to the snacks?
Snacks? Well, feel free if anyone has any snacks. Feel free to bring it up. Thank you very, very much for showing up today. It's a rainy afternoon. Thank you very much, and we here at Hollis are very appreciative. Yes, sir.
I want to make a plea for this library. I want to see everybody join in. Bring your children and your grandchildren. This library is a wealth of knowledge. Right? I know people say, oh, we don't read it on computer. A book is a book. A book needs no batteries, and a little child can operate it. Remember that.
Oh, free marketing, lovely, I love it. So once again, anyone else has anything else to say? Anything? Yes, sir.
Would you eventually be having Spanish books in this library?
We do have Spanish books.
Uy.
Sí.
I just feel I have to say something. I have been a member of this library since it was some years away. And I have educated myself from reading books in this library. Right. I know I've gone digital, but there are some people who believe that because they could get the information online, there is no need to read it from a book. But I always always wonder, when I read a book, I want to see who the author is. I want to see the ratings given by international experts. And I want to confirm what my brother said. Let us utilize the library. And there are members of staff here who I have known for years, personally. Should I call a name like Miss Wahida? And there are others who are professional. I've looked at how she has run the system, whether she's in charge or not, with a silent authority. And this library today is much better than it was years ago. It is well organized, it is clean, and it is so posh that even the Prime Minister can come here and feel comfortable. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Anyone else? Well, once again, we would like to thank you very much for showing up to our annual Labor Day lecture. I hope you show up next time, and I hope you show up later this year for our many different activities and further lectures available to us, right? So, a good afternoon, do reach home safe, right? And up front, happy Father's Day.
I